I We are back. Um, this is every single thing that I read in June of 2025. Um, we got 5 books here today, and I put my stack out of order, which I'm annoyed at myself for doing. So forgive me while I fumble. But the first one, The Once and Future King by T.H. White. Man, I actually got this book a really long time ago, a couple years ago, and I was really excited to read it, but then it just ended up in the backlog for some reason, and it's really, really, really good. Like, really good. People talk about it as being this cornerstone of fantasy and stuff like that, and I've never really dabbled in like the Arthurian, King Arthur stuff too much before this, but this book really makes me want to. I actually watched the movie Excalibur after I read this, just because I really liked, I wanted more King Arthur and stuff. But this book is actually technically 4 books in one. It's The Sword and the Stone. I forget what the second one's called. The Queen and Heir of Darkness, or the Queen of Air and Darkness, The Ill-Made Knight, and A Candle in the Wind. And each story has sort of a different focus. Sword in the Stone is like King Arthur's origin story. It's him growing up, and about him and his like adopted brother, Sir Kay. Also, yeah, I'm about to spoil everything in this video. So if you care about spoilers, stop. But yeah, so the first part is about King Arthur growing up, and this one, in hindsight, after I finished the rest of it, I appreciate it more. But reading through it, it was just a little bit, it felt uneventful at times, but I still did like it. I still enjoyed it. It just wasn't exactly, I was expecting, like the macho knight stuff from the beginning, but it's more of a goofy, jovial tone, and it's about, a kid growing up and stuff like that. But I still liked it. The second portion, I think, was probably my least favorite. But also, the first two are very important for the setup for 3 and 4. So, it's worthwhile. But the second part is mostly about Garwin. I'm honestly not sure how you're supposed to say his name. Sir Garwin and his brothers. And they're sort of a foil to King Arthur and the other knights. They're a little bit more roughshod. Their mom is a witch, and there's all sorts of Freudian stuff going on, to say the least, between especially, I think it's Agawin, and I don't know. But it's a little bit weird, and a little bit off-putting, almost a little bit like freaky, like scary. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's like scary, like my teeth were chattering while I was reading it or anything, but it's more so the ideas and some of the atmosphere felt a little bit freaky at times, in the scary way. But the third part is where this book really shines. It's my favorite, The Ill-Made Knight. It's about Sir Lancelot, and it follows Sir Lancelot as he goes from basically a boy to being like the best knight ever, but then also struggling in this interesting sort of 3-way love affair between him, King Arthur, and Queen Guinevere, rather. And he thinks he's just like super impure, and he's like super devoted to God and stuff, and it's tough. I don't know, like I'm not trying to say I seem like the best knight ever or anything, but like I feel like I see a lot of myself in Sir Lancelot, where I hold myself to a really high standard and I get upset when I don't meet it, sort of thing. So it really resonated with me, and I mean, this sounds kind of hyperbolic to say, but I've always been a little bit skeptical of religion, or rather not skeptical, but just I personally have not been very religious. I've grown up in a religious environment, and it just really wasn't for me. But reading this, especially the ending of The Ill-Made Knight, it made me like want to be religious. It made me want to explore that aspect of my life more, my faith, or my potential faith, I should say. And I can't say that a book has really affected me in a way like that before, so I really got to give a lot of credit to T.H. White and this portion, The Ill-Made Knight in particular. I don't even want to say too much, even though I'm totally feel free to spoil it, but like it's really special. And if you haven't read The Ill-Made Knight, I'd highly recommend it. It's very powerful, lots of struggles with faith and redemption, and man, I don't know. It's even just talking about it, like thinking about it, I get a little bit emotional because like I mean I read it. I read the ending of the Ilme Night, and like I just couldn't stop thinking about it for days on end. I still think about it like almost every day, and it's been probably like a month since I finished it. Amazing. And then the Candle in the Wind is just sort of the end of the King Arthur saga. It sort of ties all the other stuff together. You know, it's got Garwin and his brothers, King Arthur, Lancelot, Guinevere. Like it was okay. No, it is pretty good. It wasn't like some crazy bombastic conclusion. It was more of like a, oh, this is how things are going conclusion, and like a slower. I don't know. I liked it. I was invested in it. I think it's probably the second best part. And honestly, now that I talk about the book, it makes it seem like I didn't like most of it, and I did. I just think that you got to get through the first two parts, not get through them, but you appreciate them more in hindsight because they build up to the rest of it. And then that third part just shines so hard that I wouldn't say it outshines the other ones, but it's just definitely such a big highlight, especially for me, the way it affected me, that I would put it, rank it very highly. You know, like even if it was as its own book, like far above the other parts. But still, really amazing. Once Future King, banger. All right, next up, Ulysses by James Joyce. I don't know. I kind of wish I had more to say about this book. Everyone describes it as sort of like a literary Everest. You know, it's quite difficult to read, and I wouldn't say the prose is difficult to read, but to understand what's happening is quite difficult. It's very stream of consciousness, and it's all bouncing around. I think it does a really good job. James Joyce, rather, does a really good job of capturing what it's like to have a stream of consciousness bouncing around in your head all the time, and you know, sort of these thoughts that you think you're like, oh, let me banish that, like I don't want to think about that anymore, like, but then it keeps coming back, it's recurring, and it pops up all the time. Like, very masterfully well done in that. Do I think it makes for a narrative that I could follow particularly well? Probably not. I was on my game with summaries and stuff, and I don't know, I've read a good amount of books in my day, and I got some of like the Iliad and Odyssey references, I guess, a little bit. It's like, I don't know, and like all the Shakespeare references, like I'd catch hints of it here and there, and like, I don't know if they're necessary to understand. I don't know what's necessary to understand this, because I couldn't even claim to understand what's going on in this book. But there's a few moments I resonated with and stuff, but I honestly wish it would have stuck with me more or made more of an impression on me, but it was, while I was reading it, I wasn't enjoyable. I'll say that. It was a slog. I felt like I was kind of forcing myself through it a little bit at times, which normally I wouldn't do. But like, it was a challenge. Like, I knew it was going to be a challenge, so I took it on as a challenge. And I made sure I paid attention, like I wasn't skimming through anything. But like, it's just the stream of conscious style. It just makes it really easy to just glaze over it, you know, like, oh, and like not really absorb it. And I swear, like the last chapter of this book, it's like 40 pages, and there's got to be like 5 periods in that entire, it's just like one crazy stream of consciousness. I don't know. If you're looking for, you know, I don't even know how I'd recommend this to anyone. Like, I don't know what you'd be wanting to be looking for, to get out of something for me to recommend this. But I mean, it's something. Like, there's a reason. I see why it's in the literary canon, so to speak. It's also very freaky and nasty, sexy. Not in a sexy way, but in a sexual way, I should say. Like, I was reading the beginning of it, and they talk about why this book was like censored. I was like, why? I wonder. Like, or they talk about like, oh, you couldn't read it uncensored in the U.S. and then they changed like censorship laws, and then they finally got their hands on it. I'm like, damn, reading this absolute smut in the 1800s or whenever this came out, or early 1900s, I could see why I would ruffle some feathers, and how they would say back in the day. But next up, we've got The Legends and Myths of Hawaii by Kalakaua. I probably butchered that. But this was dope. It's written by Kalakaua, who was actually a king of Hawaii. And so that's pretty cool. And he takes all these Hawaiian stories, and he writes them in a more modernized, like Western style. I read a more scholarly take on the Hawaiian myths, and I didn't really find it that engaging. I'm a big mythology guy, and I'm not saying that mythology should be written to be engaging for some old white boy 3,000 years later or whatever, but oh man, I wish I could remember what the book is called. It's like one of the first preeminent books on Hawaiian mythology. Like if you look it up, like it'll pop up. But I read it and I found it quite repetitive and confusing to follow a lot of the time and just kind of straight weird. But I did think it was interesting, like the chiefs and the taboo and the culture and stuff like that. That stuff was interesting. And it's just cool. Like, I mean, I think Hawaii is so interesting as a place, and I always want to learn more about it. So that's why I read this. And this was a lot more presentable, a lot more interesting. I wouldn't say it was like a absolute 10 out of 10 banger or anything like that, especially as far as like other mythological narratives go. Like, I don't think this is making it, like, I don't think any of these stories are like, oh, this makes me think, oh, this is as fire as like the Iliad or something like that. But I still enjoyed it. There's some cool stories in here. I wish I could like recall more of them off the top of my head, but I really can't. But this actually takes more of a historical approach to it. The other one I read is a little bit more mythological. Like, there's definitely mythology elements and gods and stuff, but it's like in a chronological way where it gets closer and closer to the time of its writing, which I believe is the 1800s or 1900s. My memory's trash when it comes to dates, but it gets more and more modern. Like, you even get to parts where it's like, okay, this was around the time of when Captain Cook, the guy who discovered Hawaii, first white boy to touch down, I guess, on Hawaii. So like you can kind of place them in history, and it gives it an interesting feel to it. So yeah, I think it's solid. I think this is a much better entry point if you want to learn about Hawaiian mythology versus the other stuff I read, because it's a little bit more of a graspable narrative, even if it is a little bit westernized and stuff. I still quite enjoyed it. Was pretty engaged for the most part, and it's in a bunch of stories, and it's pretty bite-sized, the story, so you can read a little bit and then put it down and come back to it later. So that it lends itself well to that. All right, and next we've got Texas by James Michener. Now, funnily enough, I actually got this because I went to the bookstore because I wanted to get Hawaii by James Michener, and they didn't have it, but they had Texas, and I was like, all right, let me get this instead. So I got it and I read it, and it is quite long. It's really, really interesting. And I'm really glad I read it. It's like clearly like James Michener has a very big passion for Texas, and a lot of it is fictional, but it's grounded in history. So I still feel like I learned a lot about history and like the time periods of what it was like to be around, while maybe some of the more main characters were more fictionalized, and some of the events and stuff, but they're like mere real life events. So it makes sense. But like learning about the Alamo, of course, it's like a classic. I gotta say, this is one of the only books that you start out and you're like learning about like Spanish colonization of Mexico, and they're like searching for the city of gold, and then you get all the way to like the high school football arc, and it's like, how can we buy all these people for this team? So it goes over the course of 1,200 pages from like, like imperialism in the 1500s to like near modern day, like high school football, stacking the team and like getting dudes who should be in college on your football team. And so I thought it was cool. There's not a lot of books where you get like to go from that to that and have it be just as integral to the plot, I guess. Although that is one thing I will say is I wish the overall plot tied together. The way it's set up is it's like there's like a task force in the modern day, the time when this book was written, that's like researching Texas history and stuff. And then each story throughout is sort of an anthology. But it's not even an anthology, like some stuff, like there's still a through line between like the anthology stories. A lot of characters pop up and stuff, some recurring characters. And I liked it. But I didn't really care about the task force stuff at all, which definitely, I think it hurts the ending, because I feel like the ending is supposed to be like, oh, this big task force cathartic moment thing. But if you're not really invested in that, like I would kind of read the task force stuff and be like, okay, I don't care. Like I was just focused on the anthology stuff. So reading that was really sick. And I'd be really invested in that. And then I would check out a little bit, admittedly. Like I'd still got what was going on, but like I wasn't like, yo, when's the next time we're going to see their visit to here and update their pamphlet with the grad students? I'm like, no, I'm trying to see like what this guy's going to do to scam these people out of their land for his oil rigs. But it is really interesting. I feel like I learned a lot about Texas, and I feel like I don't know. I feel like I have like a pride for Texas, even though I've literally never been to Texas before. Like I'm like, oh yeah, Texas, like that's part of America. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not even like a patriotic guy, but like it's just interesting and give me some perspective. And I'd really like to visit a lot of the places in this book and visit Texas. And it makes me want to go and experience all these places because I mean, Hawaii and Texas are in the same United States. You know, that's kind of crazy to me. Like, and if even within one country there can be so much diverse locales and culture and stuff, like, makes me really want to explore the world and stuff. So yeah, Texas by James Michener, pretty good. I don't know if I'm going to be hopping on any other James Michener stuff anytime soon though, because I mean, his writing isn't bad by any means, and I was pretty locked in, but it can be a little bit dry, and I hear he really likes to take his time. I mean, he really took his time with this, but I hear like Hawaii by him is like 300, the first 300 pages are all about the volcanoes forming. I'm like, I'm not ready to hop into that right now. So, yeah, Texas by James Michener. And to wrap it up, the last book I read in June of 2025 was The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch. Pausch, however you say it. I thought this was really good. Similar vein to Letters to My Son, which I read last month or a couple months ago. It was in my last video, at least, my last batch. And I liked this a lot. It was a pretty quick read, very touching. It kind of feels like it was like Letters to My Son. Like, I'm not trying to take away from Letters to My Son, but I feel like this was kind of just an upgrade over in every way. Like, it's pretty poignant. And you know, there's points where I was reading this and like, you know, this guy's gonna die. Like that's the whole point's about. Like he's got dying of cancer and he's writing this thing, but you still just feel terrible by the end of it. You're like, damn, like just this guy really loved his family and had a lot of wisdom. Seemed like a really cool guy. Lots of great fatherly, just not even just fatherly, just lessons for life and stuff in here. And I'm really glad I read it. And I could probably see myself coming back to it. I have a few passages that I noted in there that I'd like to come back to for sure. And yeah. I don't know. I none of the lessons are really sticking out and coming right to the top of my dome right now, but it was really good. Man, sometimes I just feel like, wow, like I wish I had better words to describe this stuff. I feel like my articulation skills are trash, but if I keep doing this, hopefully they get better and better. But yeah, that's everything I read in June of 2025. Got to figure out how I'm going to do the movies catch-up video, but hopefully we'll be getting this back on a monthly basis. So I'll catch y'all for everything I read in July. Peace.